Good morning, brothers and sisters. You ready to hit the hill today? All right. So I know that many of you have appointments at different times, so none of us will be offended if we see you leave the hall, and if we know why you're here to do the work that is necessary on Capitol Hill. So let's jump right in. CWA's legislative and political work has sizzled over the last months, thanks to all of you. Brighter and hotter than the weather in Washington, D.C., for those of you that were here this weekend. And baby, we know that is hot, hot, hot. When we think and talk about CWA, we often picture the CWA triangle, with representation at the base, organizing on one side, and political and community action on the third. Taking our lead from the triangle, for a moment, picture our legislative and political work in that fashion. The base is our election work, the door knocking, the phone banking, the worksite leaflets we distribute to our members. The second side is money, including COPE, and the third is legislative work, our lobbyists, our legislative strike force, our LPATs, and President Cohen's and other board members' relationship with the legislative and executive branch. The stronger each side is, the better chances we have of making our collective voices heard and moving our issues to completion. So let's talk about them one at a time. One of the most important lessons that we learned from our healthcare campaign is that it takes a long time to build a structure, to identify activists, to educate them, and create processes where information can be disseminated in a timely manner and action can happen when it matters most. The outgrowth of our healthcare and Employee Free Choice Act campaigns have created a strong and growing group of legislative political action teams, or what we call LPATs. We now have almost 1,300 CWA members signed up to be members of the LPATs. Yes, give yourself a round of applause. Our LPATs are in 101 locals and in 22 different states, and we're going to grow that number more over the next year. In March, we had identified of this year CWA members in 100 congressional districts as members of our legislative strike force. People who know their congressman closely enough to call them within 48 hours and personally talk about issues important to working families. Today, we have CWA members in 272 congressional districts. We have double contacts in 91 of them as members of our legislative strike force. They are in every single district and in 36 states. In just a few short months, you can see we have more than doubled the size of this very important group. From Don Abbott in South Florida to Jim White in rural Virginia to Gail Love in Washington, we will continue to make sure that no congressman can vote on an issue that matters to us without having to think of the face and name of a CWA member who splices cable or reports or broadcasts the news or answers service calls or is a flight attendant or prints and publishes, or protects our fellow citizens, or builds jet engines. They will remember every single one of us. This group is not just names on a piece of paper. They are all about action. We are all familiar with the wonderful work we did on health care. No, we did not get the bill we wanted, but it is a step forward on health care reform. Our work on health care was not just important, it was imperative. And it absolutely made a positive difference in the outcome. I believe that CWA identified one of the big problems and then led the fight against the excise tax and caused significant changes made to its structure. Every member of this union played an important role in that fight, from Larry Cohen in his meetings with the president to the 41,000 of you who made phone calls and wrote to your members of Congress. Thank you very much. But when the health care bill was signed by President Obama, our activist network, you and others that are at home, leapt into action on many new fronts. You see, we now have a structure made of activists who are passionate and are willing to sink their teeth into legislative battles. Activists who understand that our political fights are often just as important and sometimes more important than our battles at the bargaining table. Activists that understand that this work is hard but not hopeless. Let's highlight some of that work. In the last 3 months alone, we have sent a combined 163 letters to targeted members of Congress from our state and local leadership. That's you out there. Thank you. This action is like giving our Washington lobbyists a bullhorn in the halls of Congress. It is like you are there with them every day. Those of you that vote for those people at home. These grasstops letters and meetings have allowed CWA to win on some big legislative issues. We have protected jobs at the GE plant in Massachusetts, where our members build the alternative engine for the F-136, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. We were able to get a repeal of the Reverse Morris Trust through the House of Representatives, where it awaits action by the Senate. We were able to pass the Public Safety Officers Collective Bargaining Bill through the House, and it too now awaits action by the Senate. We have successfully protected the rights of our research assistants in New York and California through legislation that passed both houses. When the broken rules of the Senate blocked the appointment of members to the National Labor Relations Board, our legislative strike force sprung into action. We got 150 members of the House to sign on to a letter calling on President Obama to appoint labor-friendly people to the board. CWA led that fight. The day after the letter was delivered, President Obama appointed Craig Becker and Mark Gaston Pierce, whom you heard from on Monday, to the board. After hearing his remarks, we know clearly we have a friend in Mark. Republicans in the Senate have been stalling this appointment, abusing the Senate rules, and preventing workers from having a final place for conflict resolution. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court recently dealt a setback to the board by voiding past board decisions that were made when only 2 members were present. Now the board has even more catching up to do, but we are hopeful that with the right people in place, people that understand and care about the rights of working Americans, that will uphold the spirit and the intent of the NLRA, that justice will finally be served. Another election cycle. The 2010 midterm elections is right around the corner, just a little over 100 days away. This year, our union will be releasing about 70 members on lost time to work our hearts and our feet for those politicians fighting on behalf of working families. Earlier this spring, we had our first ever nationwide election training, attended by local leaders and staff that will be leading our election work. The training focused on providing our activists the skills and knowledge to run campaigns. We have also budgeted more than 35,000 hours of lost time and are counting on hundreds of thousands of volunteer hours to put our friends, our real friends, into office. Our goal is to contact each of our members 10 times to register them to vote if they aren't, provide them information, and get them to volunteer and vote. Through worksite flyering, mailings, phone banks, and door knocks, we will continue the upward trend of educating and activating more and more of our membership. We will protect our friends. We elected a lot of good people in 2008, and then there's the word that we thought were good people, and we found out differently along the way. And we are going to work hard to protect those people that stuck with us, people who were true to their principles even when the heat was on, people like Mark Schauer, Mary Jo Kilroy, Kathy Dahlkemper, and John Boccieri, all 4 freshmen. They are true heroes in CWA's minds. 2010 will also be the year when we leverage our power at the ballot box to hold our quote-unquote friends accountable. We have heard a lot this week about the wonderful work in Arkansas, and we're fortunate to hear personally from Bill Halter, our candidate, on Monday. Wasn't he great? You also heard all of the reasons why we refused to support Blanche Lincoln, and it wasn't just one little slight. She totally wrote working Americans off, and it was time for labor to write her off too. As was said on Monday, Halter may have lost the election, but we sent a loud and clear message to Blanche Lincoln and other Democrats that believe they could count on our support no matter what. Those days are gone, brothers and sisters, and it's about damn time. Blanche is not the only one that we worked for before but will not support again. What we may do varies from place to place. For example, in Ohio, we didn't have a candidate, a viable one, to run against Zach Space, who did not support us on health care. But we are not going to help fund his campaign, and we won't volunteer for him. Just like kids have to grow up and face the music, we are going to ask politicians to grow up and understand there are consequences for their actions. Our election work will give us more opportunities to build stronger and new LPATs and to add members to our ever-growing legislative strike force. Our new SIF, Building a Strong Political Movement, gives us resources to continue to build on our successes of 2008 and 9 and 2010. But as we know, our work will not end when the ballots are counted the first Tuesday in November. Each and every person who volunteers on the campaigns will be asked to volunteer in the winter and spring on our legislative work. Because if you can't just elect them, we got to get them to do something. We are planning a legislative university to be held early in 2011 that will provide our legislative activists a broader depth of skills. We know there will be new issues to tackle, and we will be asking each of you and the membership to write letters, lots of letters on issues and bills that are going to give us more members to organize and more strength at the bargaining table. The corporations spend hundreds of millions of dollars on lobbyists, but all of that money cannot buy the strength of the voice of every member of this union calling on Congress to support working Americans. We don't need a crystal ball to know our number one issue, and that work will start now as we are endorsing Senate candidates. The message is simple. We won't support them if they don't support changing the Senate rules. The Senate is the worst excuse for democracy I have ever witnessed. You have heard many examples of that just since we have been in Washington, D.C. And it is not just the filibuster that needs changing. One person can put a hold on a bill, and then there is a convoluted process before a bill can even be discussed, much less voted on. It is like being in a helicopter looking down over the Long Island Expressway at rush hour. Nothing is going nowhere. At least that's what Chris Shelton told me. There are currently 400, count them, 400 items for consideration waiting for Senate action. And with the current rules, most won't even get the attention they deserve. Now, how is it that you have the House of Representatives that has 435 members and they can get all the work done? Well, we know one answer. She was here this morning, Nancy Pelosi. The other thing is they have rules that allow democracy to work. We have too many problems in this country to let a small club of 100 have so much control over our destiny. We are all entitled to the democracy that our founding fathers fought for, and democracy that we spend billions of dollars to promote in other countries. I suggest we start that spread of democracy right up the hill on the Senate floor. We have been frustrated by the minority party's refusal to accept well-qualified judges and appointees, including our own Bill Borman as the public printer. We have struggled under the thumb of a party that represents just 40% of the Senate, yet sees fit to block every law and bill that would help raise the standard of living for every working family in America. And you just heard the speaker talk about the challenges they've had in extending unemployment insurance. But let's not let the Democrats totally off the hook on this one. They could have changed the rules on day one of the 2009 session, and they didn't, basically putting themselves at the mercy of the Republicans or the Democrats that don't remember or act like they're Democrats. If you want to pass progressive legislation, 1 gig to anchor institutions, call center legislation, if you want to see all our public sector workers are able to collectively bargain across state lines, if you want to see calls that call for a greater workplace protections, if you want to pass better labor law like the Employee Free Choice Act, then send a clear, concise message to Senate candidates. Change the Senate rules so that work can get done, or we will not support you. Coalition building also will be very important. Later this morning, we'll be hearing from Ben Chellis, president of the NAACP. We loudly and passionately endorsed a partnership with the NAACP and many other progressive organizations for the One Nation activity on October 2nd. But it's not just an activity for that day. It's building a movement with many of us working together. But we have and will continue to build more effective partnerships with organizations such as the Sierra Club and the Blue Green Alliance, which we'll hear from tomorrow, and our constituency groups, which we talked about building yesterday. We need to work with groups that have activists that can help also send a loud, clear message. We need more than just labor to get the job done. We need groups like Emily's List and NOW and others to understand our issues and to build a broad progressive agenda. 2009 was an especially challenging year on the COPE front. Everyone is aware of the historic drop in members that CWA experienced last year, over 30,000. This was certainly a factor in us raising less money, 68,000 less than in 2008, for a little over $3.8 million. Now, normally, we would be very disappointed in that. This is the first time we have raised less in many years, but let's dig a little deeper into the results. Yes, we lost 30,000 people, but the amount of people that are contributing to COPE only dropped by 4,000. That's all thanks to you. 2 districts, District 1 and District 13, actually raised more money than they did in 2008. So thank you very much, both of you. Almost every single group increased their average amount per giver. So our new givers are being asked to give more, and they are opening their wallets to us. What we can see is with focus and attention and more ask, we can continue to raise more COPE dollars, a necessary piece of the political and legislative equation. So this year, we have a little friendly competition to see what every district and sector can do. Every district and sector that increases its COPE amount by at least 5% will have their new eligible COPE givers and increased eligible COPE givers put into a separate drawing for a 3-day, 2-night paid trip to Las Vegas with a guest. Now, who doesn't want to go to Vegas other than me? And you get to go when there's not resolutions being called on the floor. You can just go and enjoy yourself. If a district or sector does not hit the threshold of 5%, then they will be combined with others that did not. And I'm confident that everyone will be in their own drawing. Are you? All right. Are you? The contests begin on May 1st and will end on October 31st. And the drawings will be held on Election Day. This week, we had a COPE table outside with COPE cards and T-shirts. This is what people get when they sign up also. I know my member of Congress, and most importantly, I'm a CWA activist. So the table is still set up outside. It's not too late. We've had 55 people, thank you very much, stop by so far and increase their amounts. All of you have COPE cards in your packets. So for $1 a week more, you can get a T-shirt and enter it into the drawing. Of course, we'll always take more than $1. So we hope everyone takes that opportunity, and when you go back home, you work and ask your members. We can't protect our incumbent friends and send a message to the enemies of working families if we don't have funds. COPE is so critical to the work that we do, and I know that you will help us keep those coffers full. The CWA COPE Awards recognize the outstanding COPE fundraising efforts of our locals and districts. While everyone will not get an official award, I want to thank every one of you for the commitment and work that you put into building our political program every single day. So thank you so much for the work that you have done and the work that you will continue to do. The list of CWA COPE Honor Locals was distributed in your convention packets and will be incorporated into the official convention proceedings. This year's awards recognize outstanding achievement in political action during 2009, but I believe you are all winners. Before I turn it over to Jimmy Garganis, who will be handing out the COPE Awards, I want to bring a special group of locals to the stage, or at least say their names. These locals have one thing in common. They all have over 35% of their members signed up on COPE at least $1 per week. There are a total of 29 locals in this elite group. Now, you may be sitting out there and thinking, okay, but they're probably all just little locals. Yes, some of them are small, but 10 of them have over 250 members, and one of them has over 4,000 members and still has a third of their membership on COPE. What this means is that everyone can do better, and I would challenge all of you to sign up enough members this year to join this group of 29 on the stage next year in Las Vegas. Help me welcome the following locals. Local 1020, Dennis Cassidy, the Vice President. Local 81250, Stanley Sioke, President. Michelle D'Agnostona, President, Local 1115. Thomas Marino, President, Local 1114. Stephen Maddow, President, Local 1123. Gregory Chinez, President, Local 1117. Paul Middlemice, President, Local 1124. Harry Chandler, President, Local 81255. Edward Luster, President, Local 1102. Thomas Bates, President, Local 1301. Thomas Lane, President, Local 1395. Lawrence Sullivan, President, Local 3518. Roger Todd, President, Local 3201. F.B. McCurley, Jr., President, Local 3719. Raymond Swansky, President, Local 83736. Paul Storms, President, Local 4326. Kevin Kajawa, President, Local 6300. Sydney Horn, President, Local 6350. Helen Amador, President, Local 6137. Sandra Grogan, President, Local 6301. Aaron Hall, President, Local 6316. Angela Glory, President, Local 6200. Ernest Tilley, President, Local 6151. John Kohlmeyer, President, Local 6313. Tommy Costello, President, Local 7717. Roseanne DuBois, President, Local 7500. Chester Nettestead, President, Local 7219. Sherry Wojtovich, President, Local 7250. And Michael Taylor, President, Local 9477. Let's give them all a great round of applause. Thank you. So, I would love to tell the building people to make the stage stronger next year in Vegas so we can have more locals up there. Are you up to the task? All right.